We'll be starting in a couple of minutes, but if anyone is here for public input, please know that you can come up to this podium to sign in and register as a public input speaker. So once again, if you're here for public input, you can sign in at this round podium to your right. Otherwise, we'll start right on the dot at 5 o'clock. Thank you. You can talk amongst yourselves for another minute. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here. This is the regular meeting of the Mercer Island School Board on January 25th, and I would like to call us to order. And could I have a motion to establish the agenda for this evening?
I move we establish the agenda as published.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. So we'll start off tonight with a recognition of the Mercer Island High School and Islander Middle School all-state musicians. And I'll let Superintendent Koloski take this.
So this is an exciting night for me. As many of you know, my first degree is a Bachelor's of Music. So I am always excited when we get to recognize students for pursuing this, because I've been there and been at those competitions and had those same nerves. So just a personal congratulations to each of you for such hard work. I also would like to quickly recognize our music teachers who are here with us tonight. So if they could please stand, Parker Bixby, Brian Wanzer, Vicki White-Milton, and Carol Krell, and Kyle Thompson. Thank you for adding. So we had a combined 46 Mercer Island High School and Islander Middle School students in band, orchestra, and choir that have been selected to participate in the 2018 Washington Music Educators Association All-State Honor Groups in this coming February. These students were selected from hundreds of applicants that submitted recordings and were screened individually by professional musicians. They will participate and perform in one of a number of large ensembles led by nationally renowned conductors at the state convention to be held in Yakima, February 15 to 18, which I believe is our break. So they're taking their break time to participate in this. So kudos to you. What I'm going to ask the students to do is to come up to the mic here and introduce themselves, their instrument, and the band that they are going to be participating in. And because we have so many of you here, we'd like to start with Islander Middle School students first. So if all the Islander Middle School students who are here could please stand and come on up to the microphone underneath the big screen. And our Islander Middle School students are going to be recognized for All-State Junior Honor Band, Middle School All-State Orchestra, and 7th and 8th grade Honor Choir. So if you would introduce yourself, tell us your instrument and which of the entities you'll be participating in.
Yeah, my name is Chris Bove.
I'm from IMS in 8th grade, and then we're in the Rainier Band, and I'm percussion.
My name is Thorin Finch. I'm in Baker Band, and I play the French horn.
I'm Jame Goodwin. I play flute, and I'm in the Rainier Band.
I'm Maggie Peterson. I'm a singer. I'm an alto, and I'm going to be in the 7th and 8th grade honor choir.
I'm Benjamin Kinder. I play French horn. I'll be in the Rainier Band.
I'm Samara Blooming. I play clarinet, and I'll be in the Baker Band.
I'm Yubin Lee. I play alto saxophone, and I'll be in the Rainier Band.
I'm Hideaki Shiotsu. I play viola, and I'm in the Junior All-State Orchestra.
I'm Joe Zhang. I play the violin. I'm also in the Junior All-State Orchestra.
I'm Tristan. I'm playing in the Rainier Band, and I'm a percussionist.
Congratulations to all of our middle school students. And I know it's going to be a much longer line, but will our MIHS students come on up for recognition as well? Same process. Tell us your name, your instrument, and the band or orchestra or ensemble or choir that you will be performing in. So go ahead and make your way up, and I will talk about that for the All-State musicians. They will be in the All-State Concert Band, the All-State Wind Ensemble, the All-State Chamber Orchestra. We have All-State Jazz Ensemble, All-State Symphony Orchestra, and All-State Symphonic Choir. Go ahead.
All right. Hi, I'm Mark Lehman. I'm a senior in high school, and I will be playing piano in the All-State Jazz Band.
My name's Cameron Lee. I'm a junior at the high school, and I'll be playing clarinet in the concert band.
I'm Chris Toda. I'm going to be playing viola in the All-State Chamber Orchestra.
I'm Sophia Restebin. I'll be playing French horn in the All-State Symphony Orchestra.
I'm Catherine Ristebin, and I'll be playing French horn in the All-State Wind Ensemble.
I'm Martha Sprague, and I'll be playing cello in the All-State Symphony Orchestra.
I'm Carrie Anderson, and I will be playing clarinet in the All-State Concert Band.
I'm Sophia Scull, and I'll be playing French horn in the All-State Symphony Orchestra.
I'm Tyler Wu, and I'm going to be playing bassoon in the Wind Ensemble All-State Band.
I'm Jack Price, and I'm going to be playing bass trombone in the All-State Jazz Band.
I'm Sam Bailey, and I'll be playing bass clarinet in the All-State Wind Ensemble.
I'm Hannah Gogish, and I'll be playing trumpet in the All-State Chamber Orchestra.
I'm Avery Smith, and I'm playing bassoon in the Symphonic Orchestra.
I'm Ken Kobayashi, and I'll be playing the violin in the Symphony Orchestra.
I'm Min J. Park. I'll be playing cello in the All-State Chamber Orchestra.
My name is Maya Wallen, and I'll be playing the violin in the Symphony Orchestra.
I'm Alexander Hill, and I'll be playing oboe in the All-State Symphony Orchestra.
I'm Nathaniel Payson, and I'll be a tenor 1 in the All-State Symphonic Choir.
And I know Craig, our communications director, will not forgive me if we don't have a group photo. So if we could have all the students come up, do you want them in front? And just kind of make your way in front of the board here. We might have to do 2 rows and maybe the front row kneeling, but if the middle school students would also come up.
Which one of you guys are tall?
And we'll have to probably stand because, come all the way around, guys. And if our band directors would like to come on up as well, our music teachers. Vicky, you have to be in front. Thank you, students. Thank you, parents, for coming and bringing your students here. Best of luck to all of you in February. We look forward to hearing great things from all of you. Thank you.
We'll wait a few moments for the people who need to leave, but all of you are welcome to stay for any other portion of our board meeting. Thank you for coming.
Yep, go ahead. But it wasn't a state, it was province. Provincial, for choir.
All right. I think we have some more people coming in too, don't we?
That's not a problem.
Okay, that's a good problem. Okay, I'll just start talking a little bit maybe and reintroduce it to you. All right, the next item on our agenda is full governance process monitoring for Board Policy 2020, Fundamental 3, Social Emotional Skills. And we have our school teams coming in. I hear there's a lot of traffic out there.
It's hard to find parking. Yeah, so that we can make something, because it's a 3.
All right, Donna, would you like to cue it up?
Certainly. So Fundamental 3 is definitely a focus on social emotional learning, which we read a lot about now, particularly in education, and how important it is for the whole child, for the whole student, to really impact their achievement. And so Fundamental 3 really does address a lot of our social emotional components. And so at this time, I am going to turn it over to, in front of you here, and kind of hiding in the back a little bit, a truly awesome leadership team. So, Jennifer?
Great. So I have the pleasure of introducing Fundamental 3. The way we're going to do this tonight is I'll do an introduction, and then we have staff from the elementary as well as the secondary here to talk about a few of the vignettes, and then we'll open it up to questions, and you can ask us whatever needs for clarification purposes and those kinds of things. And then we'll do the same thing for Fundamental 4 with Fred leading off on Fundamental 4. I think most important thing about Fundamental 3, as we look at it, developing self-awareness, empathy, emotional and social intelligence, responsible decision-making, and citizenship, was last year you added the word empathy to the fundamental. And so you asked for us to find more indicators for empathy. I will tell you, finding quantitative indicators for empathy was not the easiest task to do, but I did look at things that would relate relate to helping people, having friends, being respectful, and belonging in a group. And so those are the kinds of indicators that I added to the set that had been previously utilized. I think probably the most interesting thing is that kids are hopeful about their future. They're comfortable interacting with people from different racial and ethnic backgrounds, and they feel bad when somebody gets their feeling hurt. And those are the kinds of qualities that we want in children, and so that they turn into citizens that have those same kinds of qualities. With respect to the new indicators, they say things like, I am treated with as much respect as other students, but then less students said, most students are respectful of each other at this school. And I think that plays to the fact that they themselves feel treated, but they still see things happening in the school environment that they wish wasn't, or they know maybe isn't the best way to treat another individual. Additionally, from the Healthy Youth Survey, they said most students tried to understand how other people feel and think. So I think they're taking into account that they're not the center of the universe, and they need to be cognizant of other students and how their actions might impact their feelings and the thought process that students are going through. The indicators indicate that our students care about each other, that they are becoming students that are aware, they're developing self-awareness, they do have empathy, they are increasing their emotional and social intelligence, and they are looking to become responsible decision makers. So the data supports that, but I think far more telling in a social emotional environment is the stories that we can tell you about things that are going on in the buildings. So I think what we'll do is start with the elementary, and then the secondary will chime in here in a couple minutes. Make sure it's on.
Good afternoon. Okay, we'll try it again. Hi, nice to see everyone. I'm here to talk a little bit about mindfulness. So we started mindfulness at Island Park about 3 years ago. It started as a small group of maybe 5 or 6 teachers and with our school psych. And it has blossomed to almost where I think almost every teacher has taken training. It's been supported by our PTA, so during the summer they'll go online and get the mindfulness training. It's used every day in the classroom. There's formal lessons. Our school counselor, Leanna Montague, also comes or goes to classes and has lessons from kindergarten to 5th grade. We have a mindfulness PLC, a professional learning community that meets every month, and then they share certain videos and TED Talks and other materials that they gather with the rest of the staff. So you ask any student in Island Park, and I hope they would be able to tell you that mindfulness is just being aware of what their own body is doing and the environment around them. And it definitely links into empathy, as we're always asking them every morning in our announcements to be mindful of yourself and to those around you, to be kind. And we also use mindfulness to teach breathing techniques, especially during exams, quizzes, and there's also when there's conflict resolution happening, we ask them to calm down before we can start talking about problem solving. So it's been very successful. It's amazing how far we've come in a couple of years, just as it's a part of not only our vocabulary, but it seems in our community and the country you hear a lot about mindfulness. So it's been successful, and we'll continue to do it.
And so I'm going to talk about Second Step. This is our 3rd year of implementation for Second Step. For those of you, if you're not quite familiar with it, it really is 2 parts. We have an anti-bullying curriculum, and we're working with students on just kind of identifying bullying, what that is, the different roles, what a bystander means, what do you do in that case, and reporting. I'm just giving them some tools. We also have units on the skills for learning, where they're learning about how to be a good student. Definitely we have lessons on empathy, emotional management, and then problem solving. And so we're just giving them the words, as Jennifer said, when they're recognizing conflicts with their peers and so forth, how can they be a part of that? And certainly empathy is a word that when we are working with students, we use that often, and students can tell you that that really means putting myself into the shoes of others, and often I hear that kids say, walk a mile in someone's shoes. We have lots of posters in our schools. We infuse Second Step into our morning announcements. We have, again, those weekly classroom lessons that teachers do, as well as our counselors, and there have been times where I myself have stepped into the classroom and done Second Step lessons with students. This year, though, we kind of have bolstered the program. We really are looking at who are the people who are working with our students in the areas where they're having the most difficulties, such as recess and lunchroom and so forth, and of course that's our paraeducators. So I've been working with paraeducators to train them on this language. We have posters around the school, and so I gave them lanyards that now they're doing problem solving with the students. One side of the lanyard is around calming, and so it's really interesting, kind of tying into David and the mindfulness. When we talk to students, we can't problem solve with them if they're upset. So let's get calm, and how do you do that? And the students talk to you about mindfulness and about deep breathing. They have a lot of different terms that they refer to it as, even so much as putting the lava back into the volcano. So it's just been great. So we're working with the paraeducators, and then also Leanna Montague and I were kind of piloting this year recess mentors, or student recess mentors, and we're also teaching them Second Step, the conflict management and problem-solving strategies, so that they can go out and they're working with the younger students out at recess.
Hi, everybody. Before I speak, I do want to introduce this lovely lady sitting next to me. Her name is Kathleen Chafu. If you don't know her, she is a teacher at our school, works as our librarian this year, and is an administrative intern. So she's learning to be a principal, so she is going to be presenting here as well. So I just wanted to make sure to introduce who this person was sitting at the table. I am going to speak a little bit about our Sources of Strength program. And Sources of Strength is in its second year at Islander. And really what happened is our Natural Helper program that we had for years and years and years has morphed into Sources of Strength. And Harry Brown, our Mercer Island Youth and Family Services counselor, and Jana Dash, who's one of our academic counselors, are the facilitators and leaders of bringing Sources of Strength to our kids. And the program reads that it's peer leaders spreading hope, health, and strength. And really the baseline behind it is resiliency training, resiliency building for kids, and distress tolerance practice. And what kids do is they think about several factors in their lives and where they see their source of strength. And so when they are upset, almost along the mindfulness concept, when they're upset or when they're having a conflict, what source can they go to help them solve problems? So it is while facilitated by adults, it is a student-led program. So students are, it's an open club for kids, but they also receive some training. And then they do some school-wide things. So far this year, they've done what's called a thankfulness challenge. And so kids came and they looked at the different sources of strength and identified things within their own life that they're thankful for. And those are all hanging on the wall in our commons area. And you see kids standing there reading them and looking at them very consistently, which is really cute and fun. They are right now preparing for classroom presentations. So the kids will do a peer-to-peer presentation that's called Getting Depression Out of the Dark. And the idea is how kids can identify what depression is, how they can get help, and it'll be peers teaching them to do that with, of course, counselors and teachers in the room. So that is the thing they're doing now, and then they're going to do an I Am Stronger campaign following that to try and help get kids more engaged and involved. So it's a pretty awesome program, and we're very excited about the changes that are happening within it.
All right, so we have a new program at the middle school, Dependable Strengths. It's led by the counseling team, and it is a small group with a group of 8th graders and a group of 7th graders who meet on a weekly basis to develop ways to identify their own personal strengths so that they can use those as a way to help their resiliency going forward with challenges. They start with a series of personal stories that they develop along with their parents, so there is parent involvement. Parents also submit stories about the students as well. They pull from those stories different traits that they feel show that resiliency or that strength. And then they have peers also pull different strengths from those stories as well, so they can see from a different point of view what their peers see as strengths in them that they aren't identifying themselves. And then they build what's called a strength resume. And so they build a list of items that they can use and identify going forward to deal with different problems. So it's a 9-week meeting, and they right now are doing a gender-specific meeting, so it's just a girls group at the moment, with the idea of expanding into a boys group through Harry Brown later in the school year.
So we obviously had many more stories in the write-up, so you're more than welcome to ask questions. But we just wanted to give you a flavor of the fundamental 3 and both the data and the quantitative as well as the qualitative, and we'll open it up for questions.
I just wanted to say thank you for doing such a great job on empathy. I know we included it last time. I think the indicators you found, Jennifer, were great. I think those are very good measures, and I'm glad we didn't make stuff up here from the boardroom. So much appreciated. I think they're very on top, very much on target. Regarding mindfulness, David, I just had a question on that. At the elementary school level, there's been a lot of not in our school, but in the environment, an issue around how do kids protect their bodies and think about their bodies and personal space and all that. Is that come in here as well, or is this somewhere else in the program?
I know it's in the 5th grade health unit when they get to the springtime. They talk about healthy bodies. And we start in kindergarten. I mean, we define our sphere. We have this invisible bubble, and we use that. I guess, I don't know if it's an analogy, whatever. We use it with students all the time, especially when there's issues at the playground. We talk about your own personal space, that you have a bubble, that no one has a right to infringe upon that space without your permission. So yeah, every class talks about it, but it's not part of mindfulness except to be aware of others and their space and your own space.
I see, okay, I understand.
One of our norms in our leadership team is no surprises, and actually I have an email getting ready to go out to the elementary principals, but it's not meant to be a surprise. To your question, oftentimes the district behind the scenes as part of our risk management or whatnot, we're oftentimes surveyed, and we have to fill out different forms about what are we doing. And so we were just exploring this topic as we were completing some of those questionnaires. As then we started talking, I just stumbled upon in second step kind of an addendum unit similar to our bullying unit around working together to keep kids safe from abuse, and it's kind of a child protection unit that they've just added, and I just talked to the publisher on it. So we're going to look at other options, and how do we continue to expand. But I know it's on the minds of many of our community members in a very overt way, with USA Gymnastics being unfortunately in the news for pretty horrific reasons. But it's those big stories that get our attention, but it's the small stories that we worry about with our students as we go through. So we're continuing to explore other options as well.
Thank you, and welcome, Kathleen. Thank you for joining us. A quick question. I love the work you're doing on resiliency with kids. I think helping kids be stronger and see their strengths, that especially in the middle school, I love that, and the way your team is working on that sounds sounds great with the stories from the parents and peer group as well. So that's a great time to do it too. So thank you very much for that work.
Go ahead. You have to.
Everything looks great. For the first time, being able to really delve into this and pull out these numbers, really nice stuff. I really love the stories that go behind it because, of course, that speaks to the heart. But it's great to see some upticks in numbers. Something that really caught me, most students are respectful of others, seems to have an increase in self-assessment on that. And so I love that during our current climate, our students are reporting that they're seeing more respect for each other in the schools, and I think that's pretty awesome. Also, to what you just shared, Fred, I believe it's, is it Washington Alliance for Children that creates the Second Step program? So I worked with a company that dealt with abuse and violence, and specifically educating children about abuse and violence and learning personal safety skills of how to be their own advocate. And we worked a lot with that company. They have some great resources out, not only for students and for schools, but especially for parents as well. So parents who are interested in learning more of how they can be looking at their environment, setting up their children for a success and working with you, their educators, they can check out their website and learn more there too.
Yeah. And they've got some nice vignette videos and different things. I have it pulled up right here. So absolutely.
They're a great company. Yeah, thank you.
I've been hearing these terms, and I'm familiar with them in the counseling environment in my work with kids after they're having trouble. So for quite a number of years, and I did not realize the level to which you all were putting these curriculums into our schools. I certainly have known about mindfulness for quite some time, but to see DBT skills on this list is amazing in terms of decision making and those obviously very necessary skills, and to see the analysis that kids, as we know, sometimes have trouble making good decisions. So I wish I could go back there and do mindfulness in DBT, and also in terms of resilience building. I don't think there are more important lessons that our kids could be learning, because we know that when kids don't go, kids aren't healthy mentally, then they're not learning. So I appreciate all of this. This is amazing, and thank you.
No specific questions, just thank you for doing this work.
Same here. I just want to echo everybody else's comments, and it's just nice to see year after year how we're building on programs, but we're also adding new programs, and appreciate all of both the data and the storytelling on all of this. And I also appreciate how relevant this is in today's society, and just about every tragic or sad or frustrating piece of news that I read comes back to a lot of these skills, and looking forward to when these kids grow into adults and are leading our country, and looking forward to seeing all that happen. And today, Director Janini Upton and I were at a race and equity conference in Renton, and empathy came up a lot, and I'm really proud of our district for the work that we're doing here, so thank you very much for your role in that. Of course.
So staff, you might see the board are wearing some buttons that are in recognition of the Great Kindness Challenge, because as you know, and many of you have participated in your schools, this is the Great Kindness Challenge Week, January 22nd to the 26th. So how appropriate that this is the fundamental that staff is reporting on. I know just at a visit at Northwood that there was sticky notes and bulletin boards up about students really working through some of the pieces in the Great Kindness Challenge. And certainly, yes, it's a specific week, but the goal, of course, is to have it be ongoing and perpetuating those behaviors for both students and adults.
Yes, and thank you for being at the Race and Equity Conference with us today. Didn't mean to exclude you. Okay, so was there more that we were going to talk about with Fundamental 3? Okay.
So
ready to move on to...
Actually, you need to take board action to find the superintendent in compliance.
Well, okay then. Do I have... Any, do you want to do one more thing? Okay, I'll take a question.
Is the high school presenting their fundamental 3?
No.
So you said you have elementary and secondary. So
Right.
we're having middle school representing secondary for fundamental 3.
Correct. And then
we have,
middle school, then high school
so
will
their
represent
stories are there,
fundamental.
but I don't, did you have, anybody have questions for the high
I
school?
had a question about the high school fundamental 3. Can I ask it? Yeah?
Sure.
Okay.
We have representatives in the audience. Come forward. Thank you.
Thanks, Vicki.
I think it's the last one on, I think the Bridges lessons were maybe showing gender revolution, the masks we live in, and also the hunting grounds, either this year or has already been presented.
Yes, so the hunting ground has been presented with our senior students in personal family relationships, but we are also looking at we're looking at March, the month of March. We are actually going to be doing a series with the students in Bridges where they get to choose to go to different presentations. So the hunting ground is one of them. We're also going to be showing a couple other movies that are around teen violence and just the whole realm of party scene and all of those kinds of things that our kids hear about. And so we do plan to do more with a series that and it was at the recommendation of our Parent Advisory Committee.
Great. Thank you for doing that. I think I went to I don't know if it was sponsored by the PTA, the hunting ground, and okay. Yeah, very important, very important topic, and I thought it was presented extremely well. And at the time, there were various resources available.
Right.
And I was just wondering, are those resources going to be mentioned and available?
We are. And then the other thing is we've got the mask we wear, or the mask
The mask we live in.
The mask we live in, and that's...
The hunting ground is the abridged 45-minute version. Gender Revolution, National Geographic with Katie Couric. I've actually been researching misrepresentation, which talks about women in the media. We're looking at all the discussion guides and trying to put together the schedule of how this is going to work, because we have to put all the teachers in front of it, you know, for the teachers who are going to be working in the different areas. So really working through that logistical piece of it.
And that's kind of what I was wondering too, is if it was going to be at Bridges, was each teacher presenting it? It sounds like it's being broken down. So
it is, and students get to choose to go to these seminars. So that's the other thing we've been learning through the last couple of years by offering a seminar series. It's allowing our students to self-select, and we're getting better results with that self-select. We do a survey with our students after each of the programs that we do to get feedback from them, and one of the pieces of feedback that we continually get is they like to have that self-selection process, because they think that the conversations are meatier because there's kids in there that want to talk about these kinds of things, and so we are making March the month that we're going to hit all of these areas. The whole month, I think, is what we're looking at, right?
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, so with our full governance process monitoring of Fundamental 3, I'm looking for a motion.
I move that we find the superintendent in compliance with Fundamental 3.
I'll second that.
And any discussion? Okay, with no discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, motion passes 5-0. Thank you. So we'll move on to Fundamental 4 now.
I think we might have to change some seats, so while staff is doing that, we will talk a little bit about Fundamental 4, academic entrepreneurship. And with that being said, I'm actually going to turn it over to the team, and it looks like Fred is taking the lead on this one.
Thank you very much. Looking at Fundamental 4, now we're shifting our attention to that important fundamental of encouraging students to be entrepreneurial, to be risk takers, to think about the classroom as not just what happens in the 6 dedicated sites, but also the world as the classroom. And as someone who's doing a lot of work around place-based learning, this one's near and dear certainly to some of my own passions. But when I think about even tonight and the musicians and performers who were here being recognized and the risk that goes with that, our music, even our 5th grade operettas and musicals, my daughter's operetta is tonight. I got to go today to see her, so I did my duty as a father. But some of the risk-taking that's even involved in just getting in front of your peers or in front of your parents. Some of our students will never do that again, but they did it once in their 5th grade year, and I think they'll remember that. You all were important members, and all of you were at DECA, and we think about some of those components. Last night, laying in bed watching the evening news and seeing our radio station featured, and Mariner Max, who was sadly reporting that Edgar Martinez wasn't in the Hall of Fame, and then he said, well, I was 3 when he retired, but I've heard about him.
I do need to point out, Fred, that there was an inductee, Vladimir Guerrero. I think he might have played for the Angels.
Minor league team, Ms. Pulaski. So we think about all of these great opportunities that we're providing students. But starting off at the quantitative components, I think what's fairly remarkable, and in many ways it's positive because the numbers are fairly positive. We've been fairly static over the last 4 and 5 years, similar to what Jennifer had reported with Fundamental 3. You know, the disappointing piece of that is we haven't seen a lot of incline over time on the measures, but at least we haven't seen that decline either, and they are still fairly high in many areas. So a couple places just to point out, I think that 3/4 of our students report that they try new things even if they think they're going to fail. We're always worried about whether or not we have risk takers, and do students feel safe to take that risk to fail, and love to see continued growth on that, but that's a good indicator. I think that we have, you know, 3/4 of our students saying that teachers help them when to learn other things. I think that's a positive for us. But I'd say on the areas for growth, when I looked at the indicators, I pointed out that less than 60% of the students report that teachers find other ways to help them learn difficult things. You juxtapose that with the one I just mentioned, and I scratch my head a little bit on what's causing that dichotomy there. And then less than 50% of our students feel that what they learn is useful and interesting. That decreases over time. Our elementary kids are most enthusiastic, and then the middle school it starts to go down, and then the high school, and I know that's not in this data, but we certainly look at that, and we're oftentimes wondering what we can do about that. But you know, many of them obviously are saying that they're trying new things and the teachers are helping them, but we've got to continue to try to make it relevant. So we're thinking about those as quantitative indicators there. So with that, I think overall it still continues to be positive. Just a reminder about kind of the cadence of the reports. Obviously there's gaps in both Jennifer's and my reporting. The asset survey is coming up this spring. So we'll have fresh data for you as early as May, which will start showing up in future reports, and that's 9th, 10th, and 11th, and 12th grade. The EES surveys will start heading out into the community in March. So we'll get that annual data, and then our Healthy Youth Survey, 6th, 8th, 10th, and 12th grade, that'll be coming up in fall of 2018, which we usually don't get until the following March. So about a year from now, we'll have new Healthy Youth Survey data. So just a reminder for you on where those show up in our year. So with that, high school, you're right here. Why don't we start with you with your report on the qualitative.
Okay, good evening, and welcome to new school board members. So I'm going to talk about our psychology club, and it's really a spin-off from the AP psychology class, which in itself is an awesome opportunity for students to really dive deep into the mind and how it works and as it relates to their development and beyond. And what we found from there is it's such an interesting class that students wanted more. But when you're teaching AP, you're kind of locked in and you have what you should be teaching. And so Mr. Randolph encourages students to go out and start doing some of their own, finding the different, I lost of words, I know. No, looking at different concepts that they want to go deeper in. And from that, there was the club, the psychology club was born from that. And so it's really a student-initiated club. It's where the students get to go into topics that are not covered by the curriculum or go deeper into those. And from that, they really get a chance to learn some of the things they want to learn. And so they do different activities of reading different books, watching programs like the mind games, brain games that really talks about the mind. And so they have two big events that they're really planning and looking forward to. The first one is doing a fair, a psychology fair. Well, they'll do that in March, where they'll have during lunch different activities for students to experience. And from that, what we're hoping is that it's going to spur those students' inquiry into more about how the mind works. And so they're really planning that now. And then in May, they're going to do a mental health campaign. And so as you were speaking earlier on some of those physical safeties, mental health is also an area that we're hearing a lot of these days, and especially on the island. And so the big objective is awareness to the different mental health issues and also the destigmatization. So to destigmatize those areas that students are struggling with but are afraid to go get help. So those are two areas that I think the Psychology Club is really excited and that they feel good, and that's going to offer our students a lot of extra experience with the mind. And sorry for my speaking today, it's off.
Well, the other thing about psychology, you have to be really careful when you go in that class because you might be the one they're studying. And that happened to me one day, and I couldn't figure out what they were doing. And then the teacher let me in on it later that you were being studied and they were analyzing you. And I thought, oh, great, they're analyzing their principal. But that class has increased, by the way. Started out with one period the first year, and then it tripled. And the numbers are just keep going higher and higher. So kids are very, very interested. We're really, really glad to see the kids taking this on with particularly the mental health realm and making it okay to go get help. We're also taking data on the amount of visits that they are having with the Mercer Island Youth and Family Services counselors, because we're using that data when we talk with the students to say, you're not the only one visiting these guys, you know. One year they logged over 800 visits, and that included staff, parents, and students. And so we want them to know that it's okay to use these services to ask for advice on a number of things. I'm also going to mention specifically about our radio program, and you already mentioned Mariner Max, and he was on Channel 5 News last night, which was pretty exciting. But one of the things I think that makes that program what it is Joe Bryant, who's the teacher in that program. He has amazing contacts. And one of the contacts that we are excited to announce is that we are going to be one of the main radio stations for the Seafair event. One of the things that they want to do is they want to start marketing to younger people, and because what they're seeing is that people aren't coming to Seattle because they don't want to A, try to find parking, and B, they just think it's a race for a bunch of old fogies to sit around and watch. And so they reached out to Joe Bryant, and Joe said we can market it on using our entrepreneurship class to rebrand to help your Seafair events. So I think they're going to call it the Boom, you know, Log Boom. is what they've been talking about. You see, that's what the students in the IE class, International Entrepreneurship class, have been talking about. So they've been joining those classes together to talk about how they're going to market the Seafair event for younger people. And then they're also going to be doing radio host work with the Seafair folks. So it's really kind of exciting because it's going to be a one-week summer project that the students are going to be able to do all of the announcing. They're going to be really knee-deep in the Seafair promotions for the Seafair this year. And it's kind of cool that they've come to us. They're coming to our radio station. They're hearing that it's gaining popularity in the area. And I'm just really proud of Joe and his students. Again, there's a class that started out very, very small, and this year we doubled the numbers. And looking at last night's the other night's registration, got a lot of ninth graders that are incoming ninth graders that are interested in this radio program. So, it's again taking two classes, the radio program and the International Entrepreneurship class, to promote the marketing piece, working together to rebrand Seafair so that it attracts a younger crowd of people, and taking that work from the classroom and into our community at large in the Seattle area. It's pretty exciting.
Henderson, I shared with the board on Tuesday that you were taking a group of students down to Renton Tech. Do you want to give a quick just update on how that went this week? I think it fits in here as well, and then we'll turn over to the elementaries.
So yesterday we took 12 students to Renton Technical College. They were 10 seniors and 2 11th graders, and they got to tour culinary arts, and they got to see all the different stations, baking, precision machinery, which is a new program there that will get students ready to work at Amazon, Starbucks, and Boeing. We went to see welding, and the welding teacher there he does a great job of telling students what's coming, and a lot of automation, and talking about if you're working at fast foods, you already see now at the airport, you go and order your McDonald's at a kiosk and pick it up. So just talking to students about that. But the welding, their program does hands-on welding and automated welding. Then we went to aerospace. Then we went to automotive. And so the students got to go through all those programs, talk to students and the professors, and also several of those programs have student shadows, so we're going to look at seeing if our students can shadow some of them. And so these were 12th graders who were not really committed, not sure what they're going to do next year, so just really trying to expose them to opportunities, because that's what it's about, exposure, so they can see where they fit in the world.
I just want to make a comment about something that our CTE coordinator, Jen McClellan, brought up with our staff when we were talking about this, is that we have students that are college-bound as well, that are wanting to go on and do four-year college, but they also have to work during college. And so they're looking at other careers that are going to link to the career that that's requiring the four-year degree that they're going to go and pursue to be able to make a decent living, to be able to pay for their school. And so I also think that it's also addressing students other than just your students who can't figure out what they want to do. And so it's making a difference for our students that really are challenged with figuring out what to do.
So good evening and welcome to the 2 new board members. I echo the sentiment of the high school, and I'm going to be talking about theme 2 under Fundamental 4, which is pursuing academic passions beyond the school day, and in particular highlighting the elementary school musicals. And as Henderson and Vicki alluded to, and then Fred as well, going to see his daughter in the musical today in her school district, we've got that offered at all 4 schools, and I'm going to talk most especially about the Northwood and the West Mercer musical, because that's the one that I'm most intimately familiar with. So in terms of speaking to allowing kids to decide where they fit in and maybe what kinds of passions that they have, our musicals allow kids that to enter wherever it is that they may need to enter. So we've got, at West Mercer, we have students that have actually authored the musical that we will be performing this year. And so they wrote the musical, and we'll get to see their 2-dimensional dream come to life in just a couple of weeks. And so we're very excited for them in that arena. And it takes then all of the things, the music, the costumes, the lighting, the setting, the kids themselves that have those major roles, and that sort of transcends the classroom as well, because for the first time the other day, I heard a staff member break down an academic subject into asking her students, A, how they felt about the skill set and their comprehension of the skill set, and then B, how they felt about their confidence. And I think that's what the musicals do, is that they really allow those kids that have the skill set to shine in that area, but for those kids that maybe want to practice their confidence, also to have the opportunity to shine in that area. So I thought that was great that that was broken apart into two arenas. At Northwood, if you ever have the opportunity to be in the audience, it is absolutely joy-filled, and those kids, you can see that it is a student-led production from beginning to end, and it's just very joyous to watch them perform up on stage, whether they've got a front of the stage role, a back of the stage role, and again, transcending the classroom, we've got kindergarten students that are practicing that speaking skill, standing up with confidence, making sure that their voice is heard, and that's what you see on stage or through action when we look at these musicals. So it's a wonderful thing. I have the music teacher at West Mercer that comes by my office on the days that I'm there and does musical warm-ups, and it adds a joyous beginning to my day when she walks by. And if she walks by and forgets, either I poke my head out my doorway or she loops back around and does those warm-ups. So the musicals bring the community together and just allow our students to really shine in whatever skill set or confidence-building way that they can.
And good evening. I'll be rounding out the evening tonight, our presentation here, by talking about Theme 1 and Theme 3 for the elementary schools. And as you know, there's a variety of scenarios that we shared with you. I'm going to highlight just one in each. So Theme 1 is about risk-taking, and that is exactly what Giraffe Club is about, is sticking your neck out and taking a risk. All of the second grade students at West Mercer and Lake Ridge will participate in the Giraffe Club this year. It begins with students learning about historical perspectives and people in history who have stuck their neck out and made a difference. And then it ends with them designing their own activity that they're going to research and stick their neck out and make a difference to support the community. So it can be supporting the Humane Society. It can be, a couple of years ago, a student created some signs to encourage people to pick up litter at parks. It's what that child sees as a passion for them, and then they stick their neck out and try to make a difference. And it has really inspired a number of students to pursue these kinds of activities in their future careers, so after even second grade. And then for Theme 3, that is the outside of the regular curriculum and outside of regular locale. Excuse me. I feel you, Brian. So, I wanted to highlight the outdoor education experience that all of the fifth grade students on the island will participate in this year. And that's when the fifth graders get to go to Islandwood on Bainbridge Island. And it's a really hands-on, incredible experience where they really focus on the environment and stewardship, and get to have a couple of nights with their friends overnight. And it's all just a very unique experience in a unique locale, and a highlight certainly of their elementary years.
Okay. Should we open it up to questions from the board?
Yeah,
Or comment?
Yes, thank you very much. This is a great activity to encourage kids to venture forward and try other things. I mean, I think that's really what school is all about, is these extracurriculars and finding passion. So we got some basics, but really at the end of the day, we want all our kids to find their passion. So much appreciated. I think regarding the quantitative numbers, we keep getting kids saying, and I appreciate it, gets worse as we get into the high school. This doesn't matter to me. And we've talked about this in a few other board meetings too, and some of it seems like it's also adolescence and growing up and things like that too, and might be hard numbers to move. I do know we've been encouraging recent alumni to come back and do talks at the high school, and how have those been working out? Do they share kind of their experiences at high school and how it shaped them and benefited them?
We do. They come back usually around Christmas time and from college, and they're invited into classes to talk. So we want them to share their experience of their first quarter away from home. And one of the things that they do talk about is they talk about how hard they're studying or how well prepared they were, or challenges. Particularly in the calculus class, there's a lot of conversation about the math, and in a positive way. And they're saying that we were well prepared. But I also think they're also telling students about what to expect as they move on. And I think it's very meaningful because the kids look up to them because they've been with them through school. And so especially when they're fresh in college in the very beginning. We also are looking at survey information that Fred has launched for us about what happens after high school and what their perspectives are after high school. And I find it really interesting to be able to look at that data as well to share with our staff, because it does give us a little bit more better perspective, reflective perspective, because you're right, when high school kids come home and your parent asks, "What'd you do today?" "Nothing." It's like, come on, you did something more than nothing. And so so we are looking at longitudinal data as well. Do you want to say something?
We're just now, we entered into a contract with a company, and we're getting data back. And basically what we've done is we've gone back to the classes of 2014 and 15. And they were already gone when we started. And so the company then goes and they start tracking down the graduates and start asking them the questions that we've decided on. And so we're just getting preliminary data back from what they've been trying. And then the class of 16, so that was 14 and 15, so then classes of 16 and 17, we actually got the survey before they left. And then we'll get follow-up surveys 2 more times. One is in the first 18 months after graduation, and then another within 5 years after graduation. But we're finding positive responses to questions such as, did you have a positive learning experience at Mercer on high school? 83% yes, with 6% no, and then 10% who didn't respond to that question. So we see an uptick, and maybe some of that's, you start to forget about the hard parts about high school, and you start to have a positive rear view mirror there. But we're getting very positive responses back from our graduates as they've gone out. So as we get more of that, we'll be able to share more, but it's starting to trickle in and come in. So.
Yeah, I think that's great. I think the advice from our graduates, it's only upon reflection that we know all this work is good or not. I think in the moment it's very hard to decide. Even my mom used to tell me, "You'll appreciate me more when you have kids of your own." So, and 30 years later, maybe that was so. So, anyway, thank you very much for all this work.
Thank you. More comments or questions?
Yeah, so I definitely pulled out from the quantitative data those kind of dips and those areas where it's sinking, and it falls in that school is useful and interesting to me, and finding other ways to approach their work and the subject matter and all of that. And I was certainly one of those kids in high school that I didn't make that connection. I hadn't made that connection yet. So I want to say an appreciation, starting at the elementary school level, because I know you're starting there, and all the way through to the high school level, that you're looking at these numbers and you're continuing to find ways to engage your students and to get them to think about their futures and how what they're learning today is really going to create a roadmap for them in their future. And I know you're all working really hard on that. And so I just want to say thank you. As a student who didn't get that connection, I appreciate it. Of course, the one thing I did connect with, and it's really poignant to me this year because my daughter is 9 years old, and at 9 years old was the first year that I stepped on stage. I followed my sister on stage into an audition. And I was a quiet kid. I didn't really know what was going on, and that was my spark. That is what brought in everything for me: literature, public speaking, confidence, self-confidence, and self-esteem. It's really when I found my voice as a child, and I remember that as one of those really pivotal moments for me. I love that the kids are writing their own shows. That it's great to have a big name show that everybody's familiar with and you already know the music, but the fact that they're creating it themselves in every aspect and how that represents entrepreneurship is amazing. So they're creating the language and the dialogue and the costumes and the sets, and it's their imagination. And I think that gives them a chance to use those skills while they're learning them, which is so important. So rock on. I was also going to say, as well, having experienced on the parent side of Giraffe Club last year, I love that the sources that the kids get to talk about of people who stuck their necks out represent a really diverse group of leaders throughout the world. And it's not the same faces that we always talk about. So I think, number one, showing kids diverse faces is important. And for those kids who don't normally see themselves in leadership positions, particularly in our schools, and really making a difference in our community so much that we're bringing these people in and demonstrating to them that kids are able to see themselves reflected, and I think that's so important. And then just to see that light bulb go off to those young kids, to understand that there's a greater world beyond them and that they can actually make a difference in what happens in that world. So I love that you're continuing with that program and really strengthening that program. So thank you.
So I was also drawn to in terms of the quantitative analysis, in terms of the useful and interesting to me. And we do often hear from all of our kids, this was boring, I didn't learn anything, and then we find out, oh, you actually did do something, right? I've got questions kind of in two parts, one from students' perspective and then one also from teachers' perspective with regards to that, but it can obviously be broader. With students, and especially in the high school where they have more choice, how are you working with the students when they have the pressure of, taking as many honors and AP classes as they can versus actually going out and exploring some of these career technical classes and it be seen as a really positive thing to do?
Well, first of all, one of the things that we are constantly combating is, where do we think that our kids need to be experts in everything? And then we put them, we pressure them to take all these courses that are, AP this, honors that. We've really been trying to, with our students, to preach the thought of go after your passion and spend the energy on your passion, and that you can get into college. You don't have to be the expert in everything. And I know with our 9th grade parents coming in, we were talking to them a little bit about that, because they're feeling that pressure now of my kid's got to be in honors this and honors that and AP this. We want kids to explore their passions. I think that one of the things we're also working with is for students to know that there are other fields out there, that the 4-year degree is not the end all. And I think that that's something that in this community is a little bit more challenging, because students don't view themselves as being successful if they aren't going to an Ivy League school or a four-year university that's a popular university. And we're trying to say to them that there are so many options, and, you know, money talks. When kids hear about the different salaries of different jobs, they start to go, oh, wow, you know, maybe maybe I should pursue that. I think the work that Henderson's been doing with some of our students that are lost, the word's starting to get out. The other is we're looking at our CTE programs and launching more and more of the CTE classes. And one of the things we had to do is we had to change the branding on the CTE program, because what people were perceiving when I first got here 6 years ago is, oh, that's for the students who aren't going to go to college. And the students began to saw those courses as those courses didn't count. And one of the things that we did is we looked at it and did an extensive study about rebranding those courses, and for kids to understand, or for students to understand, that these courses are launching courses for college careers that you might be thinking about, but they're also launching courses for other careers that you can explore as well. And so we've begun to do that. We've done a little bit more college in the high school program attached to those courses, which I think have made a difference. But we have a ways to go still, because we still have, I think, students feeling like that the only way that they're going to be considered successful is if they're signing up for a four-year university. And it's interesting, we're trying our best to work with them on thinking about what is your passion, because they're putting their heads to the grinder and they're just taking these classes because they said, well, I think I have to take them so I can get a college, I can get into college. And we're trying to say to them that we're showing them resumes of kids who got into some great colleges who weren't doing all just AP this and AP that. So did you want to say something interesting?
I think it's really about exposure. When you think about this community, these students here, they know how lawyers, doctors, engineers, software programmers, they know how they walk, talk, and eat. But they may not know how that machinist or that welder does. Conversely, when you look at other neighborhoods, those students may know how a plumber, how a bus driver, how a store clerk walks, talk, and eat, because that's what they live in. And so it's about exposing these students to all the different types of careers. So when I'm talking to them about tech careers, welders, I'm talking about you get into welding for 10 years and then you get your own company. When we were there at the welding informational session, a apprentice welder makes $38 an hour. So I did on my phone and did it and walked around and showed them $79,000. At 20 years old, getting in at 18, getting out in 2 years, and having your welding certificate. And so then their eyes were like, I said, okay, so you're doing that. Now you go get into the union, and then again, you two guys come together, get your own company, go out and bid for jobs. And so it may be this hands-on tech, but I'm always having them look larger. There were 3 students that were looking at the automotive. Each one wanted to do something different. I said, okay, you guys do it, come back together in 7 years, get you a big warehouse and have a one-stop shop where you can take your car in there if you want to get your body work, want to get automotive repair, getting them still, these may be hands-on jobs, but they're not limited to just that, thinking bigger. But it's about exposing our students to all different things, because the kids who were at that trip, 3 of them were hands-on. Smart kids, but I'm hands-on, Mr. Carlisle. I'm not sitting at a desk, I'm not doing anything, so.
I think also the other piece is doing that research that we need to do through our career focus on just the careers that are out there that there are jobs for. I mean, there are a lot of lawyers with no jobs, okay? And so, we've got to think about where are the jobs, and letting our students know where the jobs. There are some jobs that haven't been developed yet that there's interest surveys going on around that, and I think we still have a lot of work to do in those areas, because we've got to break that stereotype that the four-year college is the only way you're going to be successful.
Yeah, so I can also speak to just a logistics thing. Recently, well, probably in the last 2 years, we made a change to our policy so kids can take more courses pass-fail. And it's a simple kind of change, but it allows kids to be able to to stick their neck out, try something without that worry that I don't have an A on my transcript, that I can get a P on my transcript. And the reason why I did that was because I was, I was interested in the course. And colleges look at that as something good, right? Employers look at that as something good. They tried a number of things and were successful because they passed the course, but also they don't have that pressure around grades. So it's a logistical thing, but it opens up some opportunities. And then if we speak to the quantitative and that little thing about, I find what I do interesting, I actually looked at some research, and I didn't ask the question quite the same way, but it was around 35% nationwide about kids finding school interesting. So we're doing better than the average. Still means that we've got work to do, but it was certainly something that said that kids don't, maybe they don't appreciate it until after they're out. And some of it is, I think, too, the attitude as we go through the school that I'm not allowed to say what I'm, when I get older, that it's cool. So that's something that we need to work on as well.
And I think finally, the courses, more and more as we update our courses, the new requirements are requiring us to attach those courses to application of the job and the different kinds of careers that they link up to. So particularly our CTE program, they are way ahead of our general ed program because that's what they're doing is their standards are requiring them in order for us to get certified to be able to run those courses, we have to put those components in. So a lot of our students are having to put those app courses pieces in. And I think that's making a difference for kids to expose them to different careers that aren't necessarily the careers where you require hands-on.
Thank you for all of that. And my next question will actually show you, it's not that I don't think our teachers are presenting information in an interesting way. I read this very much as our kids are struggling to find their passion. And so my question is, with regards to teachers, how are teachers feeling, and this is for both elementary and secondary, how are teachers feeling in terms of being restricted within the curriculum that they're given, in terms of thinking outside the box, knowing that their class might have an interest in a particular topic or subtopic, and knowing that jumping through all the hoops in terms of getting approval through the district in order to be able to go outside the box a little bit. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. So I'll talk a little bit to that. I think we find a lot of creativity and teachers who are finding a way to go outside of the box and make it work for students. And but with that, we have limited instructional hours, and we have a dense, a strong curriculum. So we can't add to the school day. So it is a balance, and as teachers are very passionate about making sure that students are successful in their core areas. Certainly at the elementary school, we have less room to stretch and try a lot of out of the box thinking. But I think you'll find, certainly at West Mercer, there's out of the box thinking at every grade level. Creative opportunities for students at every grade level. Is it as much as the teachers would like? Probably not, but we do need to make sure that our students have a strong foundation so that as they move on to secondary, they're going to be successful there.
It was certainly a topic, building off of what Carol is discussing, it was certainly a topic throughout the negotiations process this past spring and summer, and you may have picked up on it in the campaign trail as both of you were out there. And I think the sentiment is shared. I mean, all of us started out as teachers, and Superintendent Klosky and I were just having a conversation about this yesterday, kind of reflecting about your board meeting Tuesday morning and our own passions and interests I don't think there's a disconnect in terms of where we want to go and freeing our teachers to really be teachers and not technicians. But we've also had to insert a lot of new curriculum and just resources for our teachers. Jennifer's worked with the elementary teachers around the science. You know, it had been 20 some odd years since we had refreshed our science materials. And before that, when we were looking at our writing and our reading materials, those were quite outdated. As you had heard, those of you who approved the social studies for 6th grade, it was 1991, I believe, the last time we had a curriculum refresh. So I believe that we have to find the balance between getting the best curriculum and resources for our teachers and then allowing them to make good decisions about what matters for students. And we've got to find that balance. I think we got out of balance where nothing new was coming in and we just left it up to teachers. But then as we cycle through teachers and there isn't a curriculum for someone, there aren't any resources for a teacher to come into when they're a new teacher, that's not good for the students in front of them. So we've got some balancing to find there. Quite collaborative conversations throughout the bargaining process around that. And, you know, we kind of had a flurry of changes to 2019, right before former Director Meyerson and Dingle left around, you know, what is some of that language in 2019 that will give you still an authority as a school board to approve resources, but still maintain the local control at the school level and at the teacher level to make good decisions in the moment, because I've been working with the English department, and one of their original critiques to me was, Fred, it takes way too long for me to bring through a novel. I may as well just go find some articles, because by the time I have to bring that novel through, I've wasted all my time. And so we're trying to find new ways to say, does every novel need to come before you, or do we need to just make sure that they are aligned with, you know, we'll bring all the novels to you so you can see what students are doing, but does every last one have to come through? And that's a tension we're working with, but appreciate the support from certainly all of you through this.
The only other comment I wanted to mention was coming from a big district and being a principal for a number of years in another district, what I've appreciated about Mercer Island is we really are working really hard with our teachers who are doing the work in the classroom. And one of the things that we've been working at the secondary level particularly is curriculum alignment. And it's getting the job done smarter. And figuring out what really does matter for our students and what do our students really have to have as the bare minimums, and then moving on. The AP curriculum, very prescribed, and it's full. The pressure that teachers feel that are teaching the AP curriculum is that they want to perform well. So that means they're worried about making sure that they're getting everything fit in. But at the same time, we're also looking at the AP curriculum as well and saying, what can we tease out that is extras? And so I have to say, as we continue this work, I think Fred and his leadership in helping us to hone in better on what do our students, what really matters to us, and what our students really need to have a diploma from Mercer Island School District. I think that work is great work, and we're continuing that work. So I appreciate that work that we're doing.
Thank you for all of that. I do just want to comment on some things that I am very happy that I'm seeing. I'm thrilled to hear that Islandwood is now going to be an opportunity for all of our 5th graders on the island. I know that for most students, that's the highlight of elementary school and makes them ready to go on to the middle school. So thank you for all of your hard work in that. And I know it's a tremendous amount of work and dedication for our 5th grade teachers. So thank you. And also in terms of exposing our kids to the vocational programs and the consortium, I know that had been a drop for a number of years, and I was very happy to see that that's getting re-embraced. So thank you.
Director Jorgensen, do you have any?
Sure. Yeah, just a few comments. Probably more comments than questions. The assignment for the radio station, that just sounds great. And, you know, real world problem solving, entrepreneurial, marketing, and radio skills all combined. And what a testament to the teacher that CFAIR approached him and Mercer Island, because I think last year was the first year of 60 years in which Seafair was not telecast. And as one of those dinosaurs, I missed it. So I'm really personally interested in seeing what they do with the radio. I think it's a wonderful opportunity. And also, Mercer Island has a wonderful history with the hydroplane races as well, and I'm sure they'll find that out. In terms of the launching courses for college and or VOTEC careers, really appreciate that. As you've mentioned, there's wonderful careers out there. And as somebody who went through the university route, but engineering, I think most of my peers would say the kids that were 4 years older than us that were coming out of being enlisted in the Navy or in the Army as electronics techs, they were great in electronics theory. And they had the advantage of already being exposed to it, and also the passion of really wanting to know what these circuits did. And they took greater advantage of it than the kids right out of high school. So those kids that are taking those CTE courses have the advantage of going with a career and or just going off directly to university and having that experience, whether it's in electronics or welding. You know, a mechanical engineer that has that real world experience of actually doing that welding is going to be a much better mechanical engineer. So that's awesome. And then watching the city council meeting, I saw maybe a class or a small set of Lake Ridge petitioning the city council for an environmental change. I think it had to do with styrofoam packaging. Yes. So that was wonderful to see. I think that's about it. Thank you.
Great. I had just had a few comments as well. I love that so much of this fundamental is about trying things out, whether it's for your short-term career or a long-term career, or we know that a lot of these kids will have multiple jobs over the years, and so if they've tried something out at a younger age, it may come back to them as something that they want to do or add on or combine with something else. And a lot of it is about practice, and I think that's something that can seem undervalued, but you know, it's important for sports, it's important for music like we saw tonight, and it's important for math and language, and just having practice at doing risk-taking is super important. I love seeing that play out at the high school level when I'm at Rotary meetings and we have Student of the Month each month. Some of these kids that are up there, especially right now, these seniors, because my daughter's a senior, I've known some of these kids since they were in preschool, or I taught them in middle school, and or they were in my daughter's class in elementary school, and these kids have just grown into these amazing young adults, and so much of what they talk about in their acceptance speeches is about all these things they're doing for others. And so there's this overlap I'm hearing tonight, and I have over the last couple of years with these Rotary Students of the Month, that the entrepreneurial spirit, the risk-taking, in many cases in our community ends up being ways of helping others. And it's shown in the psychology club, and it's shown in the giraffe club, sticking your neck out for others. And so I love seeing that there's an overlap here, too, between fundamentals 4 and 3. So thank you very much for all the work that you've shown on that. Oh, and there was a comment about looking in the rearview mirror and coming to appreciate, and I think, yeah, some of it is forgetting some of the negative, but I think it's also being exposed to a broader world, whether they go to a university or a community college or go straight into the work world. A lot of kids start to see how good they had it maybe in school. And I know that's happened to a lot of us adults as well, that we kind of realize that adulting is hard. And it continues to be a challenge, and that we still need to take risks as well. So, so if we've learned that at a young age, that's really wonderful. I love that there's that you're demonstrating the importance of CTE, and whether it needs to be rebranded as CCR or just it is about careers, and so many careers involve technology. So I think both names are great. And I think it is important to encourage kids to follow their passion and be the best, whatever it is that they choose to be, whether they needed a college degree for it or not. If they can get any kind of further education post-secondary education. It's going to help their career, and they can always develop it further or go back to school later, too. I think some of us have done that and have found that it can be really enriching to our lives. So thank you for all of the work that you put into these. At this point, if there's no other comments or questions, we'll do a motion to...
I move that we find the superintendent in compliance with Fundamental 4.
Second.
Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, motion passes 5-0. Thank you very much. And at this time, we will take our recess for dinner. We will come back maybe sooner than 7. Do we need a half hour? At 7 o'clock, we'll definitely do public input in case anyone is here or shows up for public input. Is half hour good, or do you guys want to go shorter?
20 minutes.
20 minutes? Okay, so I anticipate our recess will be 20 minutes, and we'll be back here at 7:50. Thank you. 6:50. Thank you.
That's why. I worry about that as well. We talk too much.
Password. It's the Snow Patrol. We're not back on yet. Give me 1 second.
Okay, we're back from recess, and it is time for public input. Do we have any public input this evening? No?
We should wait till 7 o'clock.
Oh, you're right.
Right.
You're right. Okay, so thank you for that. So at 6:52, no one's here yet. We'll come back to public input if needed. Moving on to number 5, full governance process monitoring language review. We have several policies here going forward. Did you have any comments to make about that, Donna? Okay. So starting with the first one, well, let me just look at it this way. Does anybody have any language review for any of these items A through G?
No.
Nope. Okay. Then let's, I think we can do those in one fall swoop. Okay. So I'm looking for a motion to, no, actually, if we don't have any review, if it's language review and we don't have any changes, we don't need a motion, correct? Okay. Okay, great. Then we'll move on to number 6, partial governance process monitoring, item A. Public access to school district records. Did you want to talk about this one? We have Erin. Thank you, Erin.
Again, this is changes to the public access to district records. How about now? I may have foreshadowed some of this yesterday with the training, but there were some changes to the Public Records Act for the state of Washington. One of those, if you see highlighted, is a key change, which is that what is defined as a school district record, and it excludes records that were not otherwise required to retain under the state retention requirements, and does not include records that are not otherwise required for volunteers who do not serve in administration capacity, have not been appointed by the district to a district board, commission, or internship, they do not have a supervisory role or delegated to the district. That's sort of the key change here. There's also additional language that was recommended from WASDA that be added, that the board concludes that it would be unduly burdensome to calculate the cost of producing public records, given the multiple different electronic records and manual devices to produce the public records, as well as the fluctuation of costs of the district supplies and labor. And part of that has to do with, and the reason for the recommendation is that the changes in the law related, there's some fee schedules for what we can charge, which would appear ultimately in our procedure that's related to this policy. So the law now allows the public entities to charge for the scanning of documents, not merely the production of paper copies. So there is some ability for public entities to recoup costs for the provision of electronic documents. Does anybody have any questions?
Yes. In the line it says, have not been appointed by the district to a district board, commission, or internship. We don't really call our advisory councils and things like that commissions. How do those apply in this? Material from parent advisory councils, material from superintendent advisory councils?
The language here is taken directly out of the RCW, or the Public Records Act, and I would probably read, without looking specifically at the definition, which I would prefer to do before giving a response, but I read a commission to include if you've been put in charge of.
So I think it might be better for you to read and give us the answer later, perhaps, I think. But I appreciate that this was from the RCW, but the naming convention of all our different organizations seem to be different than what they've got here. And we should just at least have some clarity around what that means.
Okay.
And I don't think it changes this document in any case.
Okay, happy to do that.
Okay, thank you, Erin.
And this is a first reading, so this will all come back to you at the next meeting as well, and we can review it again at that time as well. It adds some, what I'm hearing is some definitions that align with how we name our entities within Mercer Island.
No, I was just curious if those these advisory councils we have subject would be covered by this or not. Just it's naming conventions are different. Is it considered a committee or not? You know, and I don't know. It just came to me that I'm on some of these committees, and I was just curious. So, and I appreciate I didn't give a heads up to Erin or anyone else on this. So my apologies on that.
No problem.
Any other questions?
Okay, so we'll hear something back from you, or are we going to just put it on the consent agenda then?
I'm happy to follow up with you via the superintendent regarding your question, and
that
if
sounds good.
you want to readdress it in light of my answer, we can do that, but it'll be otherwise on the consent agenda.
Okay, thank you. And then are you on for the next one as well?
She is.
I am.
Go ahead.
I don't know how to do it. So again, this is another board policy 5005 that was updated to include the employment and volunteers. So you see the addition of volunteers there, and the disclosure, certification requirements, insurance, and approval. Again, this basically relates to our requirements to make sure that we keep our students safe and that we know who's working with them. And so there is an addition of volunteers to this, and you'll sort of see it throughout, and sort of what our background requirements will be. And this is consistent with the WASDA recommendations as well as changes in the law. It's pretty clear that in terms of signing disclosure statements, recent checks, and how newly the one change I'll highlight, it's on, I don't know what page it is here, but if you look under conditional employment, that is a new change. And the idea is that the fingerprinting process, which is where we run it through the FBI database and the state patrol and what have you, can take quite a while, and often we hire someone, we want them working with our students. So we do the requisite background check, but they can be conditionally employed before we get the results of the actual fingerprint check back, but not before we do the watch check. So we have to have the watch check results, and the fingerprints have to have been submitted. So that just allows them to work. If things come back and there's concerns, then we can cease their employment. Do you have any questions about that process? And any employee would still have to go through our trainings and all of that stuff and be, you know, safe schools and how you work with children. So there is still a background check. It just allows there to be them to start working before we actually get the fingerprint response.
Did you have a comment?
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I was just going to ask, what's the typical response time on that fingerprint then?
It depends. I would say it depends on the time of year and how backlogged they are. I've seen it be as quick as 2 weeks and as long as 6 months. The 6 months was because there were problems with the fingerprints themselves. They kept saying they couldn't read them, and the poor person, it was unfortunate, kept having to go back and retake their fingerprints. But I'd say the normal time would be about a month.
Can I just answer that question a bit? Sometimes it is I actually had instituted rolling in my last district because of a frustration with the system being so backlogged, and so we, in a large district, did our own fingerprinting and had our own scanners and our own trainers, and so it does have a lot to do with the quality of the prints as the person who actually does the rolling of those prints scans them into the machine. So We'll try to track as well which entities are able to get the prints back to us sooner and recommend that those entities to prospective employees, because that seems to be something that occurs across all states. Is certainly there's lots of places that will do fingerprinting, but some do it better. And
Right.
so if we can kind of figure out which of those ones can have a quicker turnaround, then those will certainly be the ones that we will recommend for employees to use.
Yes, and that is something that we have been doing.
Since there's so many red lines on this document, I would love to see a copy, maybe for the next meeting, that is clean.
That has all the accepted?
Yeah, 'cause
Okay,
some of
happy to do that.
Like one in particular about the volunteers, either signing a release or instead of conducting a new criminal. It's really a long statement, and right now it looks like it's 6 lines for one sentence, but once it's all cleaned up, I might be able to read it and process it better.
No problem.
Or if you want to just take a look at it and see if there's any editing that could be done, even just breaking it into 2 sentences.
Okay.
I just think it'd be easier to read.
Okay.
That'd be great.
And is that something you'd like before the next meeting or at the next meeting as well?
Maybe before, so that it
Just so
could
you
be
can
clean
consider
on
it.
the consent agenda. Not
Understood.
brought out.
Happy to do that.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Are there any other questions?
All right. Thank you very much, Erin. So next we have the consent agenda for this meeting. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
So that's a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Yes.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Consent agenda approved 5-0. And next we have the superintendent's report.
Do you want to do public comment since we're at 7:03?
Would our one audience member like to give any public comment? Okay, thank you. Public comment is closed.
So several small things here on the report tonight. One piece is we have to do an at-risk assessment for our Title IX report, and Erin just received that back notification, I think, today, that was very well received, and we got a score of 29 out of 30, which really does help when we're in that risk management pool on that one. I know the radio program was talked a lot about earlier tonight, but it's also great to note that several of our students in that program are receiving recognition that hopefully will move them on into the national competition within a radio broadcast within high schools, which we know there's very few of, and so some of their competition is with colleges as well. So a great program that's going to have lots of recognition that we'll keep you updated on. Just something to note that we've been closely watching, particularly with our nurses, the frequency of illness that's been occurring. I know Vicki mentioned to me earlier this week that she was really tracking to make sure we weren't at that 10% piece, but as several of us know, because we've had this whole piece, there's definitely some illnesses that are affecting not only our students but staff as well. So it's been a bit of a challenge to work through that for everyone. So just a reminder to everyone, wash your hands frequently. We had a district-wide green team meeting, and there was lots of great news from across those teams across the district. And there's individual recognition that can come from the King County entity that supports this, but it was great to note that our district, as a district, can move up in levels of recognition due to the energy reports that we were able to give because of our 2 newest buildings. And Tony and Natalie had some great graphs that we'll share with the board in a future facilities report that shows how well those buildings as green buildings and new buildings are doing in comparison. The great comparison is to look at the 2 buildings at IMS. You have this brand new building and an older building, and the difference in the energy consumption is quite visible in the graphs. Our elementary schools have all had their international nights, except for Lake Ridge, which is tomorrow night. And if you haven't been to one of these in a while, I would encourage you when they come around again next year. It's an amazing amount of work by a lot of volunteers and staff to pull these off, but they are wonderful events for all of our families. I think Lake Ridge is selling theirs as a passport around the world for kids to come, and families are providing food and costumes and all kinds of wonderful pieces for where they're from as families in the community. Just a reminder for the board, coming up on February 5th is the PTA-sponsored Reflections Art Competition, and so hope to see you there. Also, you might have received today already if you checked your mail, but the levy flyers from the one that we are legally allowed to send are out. They should be in your mailboxes. If not today, then you'll see them tomorrow. And one last piece is at our retreat on Tuesday. There was some discussion about a change in meeting time, and so if the board would like to give direction to staff to add that to a future agenda for discussion, we can bring that forward as a discussion item to discuss altering the board meeting time for a consistent time was kind of the conversation that was had at the retreat.
Do we have consensus to add that as a discussion item to a future meeting?
Yeah, I think that would be great.
Okay.
All
Thank
right.
you.
And that is everything.
Thank you, Donna. All right, so next up is board reports, and we could start at your end, David.
No report.
To echo what you said earlier in the evening, today Superintendent Koloski and President Drinkwater and I attended the Achieving Educational Racial Equity Through Policy and Beyond. This was the 6th convening of this conference, and my first time there. It was a great day of discussion. I really enjoyed it. At PTA Advocacy last week met, and Associate Superintendent Rundle was there to present information to advocates at the schools about paraprofessionals, the pay structure, and how that all works. And it was very nice. Also, Erin was there, and so thank you both for being there to present that information. I attended my first Island Park Parent Advisory Committee and got to meet everyone there. It was great to get into the school and meet the folks, see familiar faces and meet new faces. And then just last week was the West Mercer Winter Dance, and there was a change this year. For years it has been known as the West Mercer Elementary School Hoedown, and there was some discussion about the cultural competency of that, as to whether all of our folks in our diverse community were really into that. So through a conversation through staff, the PTA, families, and the students, they decided to mix it up. So now each year it'll be themed differently. This year was a hip-hop. So an instructor comes in and teaches the kids at all levels hip-hop dance moves during music and PE, and then they get to put those moves to the test. And it was a great turnout for the event. The family seemed really happy, and I thought it was successful and a really great step towards diversity and inclusiveness. So I want to give them a hat tip for that. And that's all for me.
Great, thank you. Director Lurie?
Thank you. In the past 2 weeks or so, I've attended both the PTA Council meeting and the Mercer Island High School PAC meeting. The PAC meeting was specifically about the incidents, bomb threats that affected our community, and it was a presentation by Principal Puckett, Mr. Rundle, and police officer, our school resource officer, and facilities. So the parents had an opportunity to ask questions and have somewhat of a discussion about their concerns. Overall, I think from what I heard, the parents were mostly pleased with all the communication they received from the district. Still had concerns about what was happening with students, and obviously that was explained again, how that needs to be addressed. But I think those communications, and I think those communications help, and people are very pleased with the open communication in a way that they haven't seen, will help with understanding both the needs of, well, obviously the community, our parents, the students involved, and then the students who were impacted but not involved. And there were lots of points to be that were made and well received. The PTA council meeting also had discussion of that issue. And that is all I have to report.
Excuse me. Let's see. As I mentioned, the city council meeting that I watched, I think it must have been Tuesday this week. Let's see. I did appreciate the city manager's report, where I think the city manager maybe had 8 slides, and one of the slides was a call out to the public, just mentioning that the votes are going to land probably tomorrow. And so that was, yeah, the ballots. So I thought that was thoughtful, appreciated that. And there was another person I saw during public input, and I'm wondering if I can mention that. Is that appropriate? Okay. We had Jennifer Wright there, I think as a role of resident, who I think is an advisor to Girl Scout Girl Scouts that are pursuing gold awards. And you were there with the most recent recipient, first time in maybe 10 years, it sounded like, and that was wonderful. So thank you for doing that. And then, let's see, this is a little bit of a flyer, but I saw in the reporter and also in the city council that the city is doing a call out for their TIP program, Transportation Improvement Plan, that's usually voted and implemented in June. It's a 6-year plan, so last year they did it and they have it all planned out, but every year is an opportunity to put new things out there and to reprioritize. And in years past, this board has weighed in on a couple things, and I think very rightly. We weighed in with the left-hand turn lane being implemented at the corner of 88th and 40th, right there adjacent to Northwood. Yeah. And I think that really allowed a smooth opening and operation, and driving through it, it looks like it's working pretty well. And also, this board weighed in on the sidewalk installation at the south side of 42nd between 88th and 90th, as well as those 2 new raised crosswalks. And that's something that this board had weighed in on for numbers of years beforehand. So it was wonderful to see that happen. I mean, maybe decades. And through this process, I think the district learned that we do have maybe a little bit more control of those lands that are adjacent to schools. We have maybe a little bit more legal responsibility, but also perhaps financial accountability too. And again, I think those were great efforts, but they were very specific. And occasionally I hear from parents other opportunities. And I'm just wondering if maybe the city leadership, school leadership could be an avenue for Tracy and the superintendent to maybe suggest any improvements that you've heard of, and also maybe it could be a way for the district to kind of do an internal collection of interests from the different school units, so that could be done utilizing that kind of input, as opposed to the board having to write a letter and then stuff like that. So it's just a suggestion. I don't know.
Duly noted. Thank you very much. Since we can't discuss things right away, we'll just note it for now. It's fine. All right, thank you. I just wanted to add a few more comments about the Race and Equity conference that we went today, because one of the things I learned was that we need to talk about race and equity more, and that not just wait for the diversity fundamental review to come around, but to really talk about it on an ongoing basis. And I thought that was a really poignant part of today's conversations. And one of the things I just thought I would read, and I've heard this before, and many people have probably heard this before, maybe all of you sitting here, but they're the equity norms that are from the Courageous Conversations About Race book by Singleton, I forget, not sure the first name. One is speak your truth, stay engaged, expect to experience discomfort, be aware of intent and your own impact, accept and expect non-disclosure, remain open to new thinking. So I just wanted to remind us all of that and hope that we can, in the spirit of what we learned today, maybe have some future conversations about race and equity as it relates to our district. I think it's really important. So I also wanted to just mention that a little bit more formally that we had our retreat, which included a little bit of training, board training, and also some beginnings of some conversations about things, and that we hope to extend that time. And I wondered if you were going to mention an upcoming meeting, or if it's too soon to do that.
We have, excuse me, we'll be able to schedule, getting everyone's schedules together to schedule another special workshop session on February 13th from 5 to 7, and I assure you we will have a clean stop at 7, if not earlier. We thought it would be wise to block out 2 hours. Will we need the whole 2 hours? We don't know, but we will definitely be done by 7 o'clock.
Okay.
And it will be in our boardroom because that is a Tuesday, but we will be videotaping and uploading any of that videotape to the same place where we upload these regular meetings.
And I wanted to mention that the meeting on Tuesday was videotaped, and that they're working on producing that to be uploaded as well, so that the public can be looking for that to be more informed, and that we'll try to make sure that those are uploaded in a timely manner. Then one more shout out to the Mercer Island High School Drama Department. I believe tonight is opening night of Good Kids, which, what a great title, right? But it's also about some really important topics about using social media, and some other topics that I think are present in our media today and are important. And so I'm looking forward to attending that at some point this weekend or next weekend if anybody wants to join me. I think that would be great for us to see. And that's all I have. So,
Tracy, can I just add a clarification?
Of
These
course.
Retreat meetings are open to the public, correct?
yes, thank
Okay.
you. That was another great point to mention. They are open to the public, and they are posted on board docs as a special meeting. But special just means that it's not one of our regular business meetings, but it still means it's open to the public. Thank you for that. Okay, so next we are going to end this portion of the meeting and move into executive session. And the purpose is to review the performance of a public employee pursuant to RCW 4230-110-1G. This part of the meeting is closed to the public. No final action will be taken, but we will expect it to last let's see, we'll say 45 minutes as an estimate. And then we will return to these chambers to adjourn the meeting. Okay? Yeah, let's do those now. Thank you.